In the dead of night, the sky above Russia's borderlands was silent until it wasn't. A faint mechanical buzz drifted through the air, growing louder by the second. Moments later, a streak of light tore across the horizon. The target, a military supply train rumbling through a lonely stretch of track. The explosions that followed shattered not only the silence but the rhythm of a war already being transformed by machines. What began as a single drone strike would ripple across rail networks, battle lines, and command centers on both sides of the front. For months, the world has watched drones reshape the battlefield. They've hunted tanks, intercepted missiles, and turned the skies into invisible arenas. But this strike was different. It wasn't a battle over territory. It was a strike at the lifeline of an army, its logistics. Within minutes of impact, videos began spreading across Telegram, rail cars engulfed in fire, smoke pillars twisting into the night sky, and the sound of secondary explosions echoing miles away. Russian emergency services confirmed that several cars carrying fuel had been destroyed. The train had been part of a regular resupply route toward the southern front. Its mission was routine until a swarm of small, explosive-laden drones found it. According to open-source analysts, the attack began from inside Ukrainian territory. The drones, compact and fast, flew low across fields and forests, evading radar and anti-aircraft systems. Guided by live video feeds, they closed in on the moving target. Seconds before impact, the camera feed froze on a blur of steel rails, then went dark. Moments later, the first explosion tore through the fuel cars, triggering a chain reaction that lit up the night. When rescue teams arrived, several wagons were still burning. The rail line was shut down. The following morning, satellite imagery revealed the extent of the damage: melted freight cars, scorched ballast, and long stretches of destroyed track. To understand why this one strike mattered so much, you have to understand how Russia moves its war. Unlike many Western militaries, Russia depends heavily on rail transport. Tanks, artillery, shells, and fuel all travel by train until the final kilometers to the front. Every kilometer of track is a vital artery feeding the war machine. Destroy a single train, and you don't just delay a shipment, you choke an entire operation. Ukraine's military knows this, and it's why their drone campaigns have increasingly focused on rail junctions, fuel depots, and logistics hubs. The strategy is as simple as it is effective: make the cost of moving supplies higher than the cost of losing them. The technology making this possible is equally transformative. Modern FPV drones' first-person view are guided through cameras that feed live footage back to operators miles away. They can fly low, skim treetops, and navigate narrow routes with uncanny precision. Some carry small, shaped charges, others modified grenades or explosive packs. Cheap, fast, and nearly invisible, they've turned the air into a constant threat. And for militaries used to defending against missiles or aircraft, drones are a nightmare. They're too small for radar, too unpredictable for traditional defenses, and too cheap to counter one for one. After the strike, Russian officials promised swift repairs and tighter security. Rail engineers worked day and night to replace track sections. Military units deployed new electronic jammers and anti-drone systems along key supply lines. But the challenge is scale. Russia's rail network stretches across 11 time zones. Defending every kilometer is impossible. For every drone intercepted, 2 more can be built. For every line repaired, another becomes vulnerable. And while the immediate impact was military, the shockwaves reached civilians too. Fuel shortages began in nearby regions. Local businesses reported delays in deliveries. Passenger trains were canceled, markets went quiet, and residents described the strange silence that follows when the country's veins stop pulsing with steel. War isn't always about front lines and explosions. Sometimes it's about absence, the moment when the train that should have arrived simply doesn't. Finding such targets takes a blend of intelligence, technology, and patience. Analysts use satellite images, intercepted communications, and even public posts to locate supply trains. A single careless photograph on social media can expose an entire route. Every movement leaves a digital trace, and in modern war, that's often all it takes. Inside Ukraine's command centers, drone operators sit in dimly lit rooms, eyes locked on screens. Their voices are calm, deliberate. Target in sight, adjusting altitude, impact in 5, then static, mission complete. They're thousands of miles away from the explosion, yet each press of a joystick alters the balance of a war. But not all strikes are straightforward. International law draws a thin line between legitimate military targets and prohibited attacks on civilian infrastructure. A train carrying ammunition is fair game, a passenger train is not. The Ukrainian strategy appears aimed at avoiding civilian harm, but the proximity of military and civilian lines often blurs that line. The moral debate runs parallel to the technological race. How far can remote warfare go before it loses its humanity? What happens when precision itself becomes automated, when drones make their own targeting decisions? Each Ukrainian strike invites a Russian response. Following the train attack, Moscow retaliated with a wave of drone and missile strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure, energy grids, warehouses, and depots. This cycle of attack and counterattack grows faster, more frequent, and harder to contain. Both sides now use drones not only as weapons but as statements, proof of innovation, resilience, and reach. Every successful hit becomes a headline, every failure becomes a blueprint for the next generation of machines. To protect its rails, Russia has begun experimenting with anti-drone netting, electronic shields, and decoy trains. Some routes now operate only at night, without headlights, to hide from thermal cameras. Yet Ukraine adapts just as fast, developing drones with better night vision, stronger signals, and semi-autonomous flight systems capable of navigating without human input. The war has become a contest of algorithms. Beneath all of this technology lies a quieter truth: the human cost never disappears. Rail workers risk their lives repairing tracks under threat of renewed strikes. Civilians wait for supplies that may never come. Families fall asleep to the distant hum of propellers, wondering where the next explosion will land. For them, these aren't strategic victories or losses, they're interruptions in daily life. Every strike means another delay, another blackout, another moment of fear. The burning of one train may not decide the war, but it symbolizes the future of it: remote, precise, and relentless. The Ukrainian drone program continues to evolve, producing longer-range models capable of reaching deep into Russian territory. Each strike tests new boundaries: technical, legal, and moral. For Russia, the challenge is no longer about holding ground, but about keeping the arteries of its war machine open. The battlefield now extends far beyond trenches and cities, stretching across rail lines, factories, and the invisible networks of supply. The war has changed. It's no longer about who controls the most land or the biggest fleet. It's about who controls the flow of information, who adapts fastest, and who learns from every spark that lights the night. In the end, this was more than a strike on a train. It was a warning, a glimpse into a future where wars are fought not by battalions but by small machines guided by silent pilots hundreds of kilometers away. A war where every train, every signal, every flicker on a radar screen might be the next target. And somewhere in the dark, the faint buzz begins again.